You look around your room right now, and you likely see a graveyard of abandoned hobbies and half-finished projects. There might be a guitar gathering dust in the corner, a website you stopped coding halfway through, expensive baking tools, or a sudden, intense urge to learn jujitsu that faded after just 3 weeks. If this sounds exactly like your life, you probably carry a very specific, quiet type of shame. Society is very quick to slap a label on you. They call you a dilettante. They tell you that your mind is just too chaotic, or they insist that you simply lack the grit and discipline required to specialize. You walk around feeling like an imposter because no matter how hard you try, you just cannot pick one single lane and stay in it for the rest of your life. You have probably heard the famous phrase, "A jack of all trades is a master of none." You probably use that exact phrase to beat yourself up late at night. But you are forgetting the most important part of that quote. The full original quote actually goes like this: "A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one." Modern psychology suggests that this constant feeling of being scattered is not a defect in your character. It is actually a symptom of a highly adaptive, highly evolved nervous system. You aren't failing to specialize. You are unconsciously building a rare cognitive architecture known in psychological circles as the M-shaped mind. While the rest of the world tells you to put your head down and focus on just one thing, your brain is actively trying to prepare you for a rapidly changing future, where hyper-specialization is actually a massive liability. To truly understand why you feel this constant anxiety about your career and your hobbies, we have to look at the lie you were sold growing up. For the last century, the world was fundamentally an I-shaped game. The economy rewarded people who dug one single hole a mile deep. It was what researchers call a kind learning environment. Think of it like a game of golf, where the rules never change. The grass is always cut the same way, and the target is always in a fixed location. If you practice your one specific swing for 10,000 hours, you automatically won. But you do not live in a kind environment anymore. Your brain instinctively knows that the modern, hyper-connected world is a wicked environment. The rules of the game change every single day. In a wicked environment, the absolute specialist is incredibly fragile. If their specific industry changes, or if new technology emerges, they instantly become obsolete. Because your brain recognizes this danger, you naturally drift from subject to subject. One year, you are completely obsessed with electrical wiring and HVAC systems. The next year, you drop all of that because you are deep into yoga, heavy weightlifting, and DJing underground music. To an outsider, this looks like a completely chaotic, unstructured personality. They might call you strange, or tell you that you are hopelessly unfocused. But what you are actually doing beneath the surface is gathering vital data points from wildly disparate domains. This is where the magic of your mind happens. Psychology calls this cognitive ability, far transfer. The deep specialist relies on near transfer. They solve problems they have already seen before, using the exact same old tools they were taught to use. But you use far transfer. You have the unique ability to take a complex concept from one completely unrelated field and successfully apply it to another. Think about a web developer who used to spend years working as a beekeeper and an organic farmer. On paper, to a recruiter, Those past experiences have absolutely nothing to do with writing code, but that hands-on agricultural experience allows them to understand organic systems, growth cycles, and complex networks in a way that a specialist coder who has only ever stared at computer screens could never truly grasp. When they build a platform, they aren't just writing lines of code. They are cultivating a living ecosystem. That is the power of far transfer. That is how true innovation happens. You feel like an imposter every day because you look around and realize you aren't the absolute best at any one specific thing, but you are completely failing to see that your true value to the world isn't in your depth. It is in your synthesis. Now, finally understanding that your endless curiosity is actually a superpower brings a great sense of relief. But it doesn't solve your immediate crushing problem, the intense burnout, and the heavy feeling of being left behind in life. You scroll through social media and see people your exact age becoming senior vice presidents or lead engineers, and you feel like you are still standing at the starting line because you keep switching tracks. This specific pain happens because you are fundamentally misunderstanding the geometry of your own potential. You aren't meant to be T-shaped, having general knowledge with only one deep specialty. You are M-shaped. An M-shaped person has multiple, distinct pillars of deep knowledge, all connected at the top by a massive bridge of endless curiosity. But here is the trap that is currently ruining your mental health. You simply cannot build all the pillars of the M at the exact same time. If you try to learn advanced data science, write a fantasy novel, and start an e-commerce business all in the exact same month, your nervous system will collapse. The people who successfully navigate this chaotic life, the true polymaths of history, practice what psychologists call serial mastery. You have to start viewing your life in distinct seasons. You might spend the entirety of your 20s obsessing over music production and digital art. Then, when you hit your 30s, you completely pivot to computer programming to build stability and pay your bills. You didn't quit being an artist. You just finished that specific season of construction. Consider the story of a 53-year-old man who finally found deep peace with his chaotic mind. He spent decades fighting himself until he finally realized he didn't have to choose his art over his programming career. So, he let his programming job be the solid pillar that paid the bills, while his passions for music, philosophy, and game design flourished as his other pillars during nights and weekends. He actively denied high-demand, stressful team lead positions at his company just so he could keep his work week at exactly 30 hours. He fiercely protected his psychic energy. He didn't try to merge all his interests instantly. He let them exist sequentially, one after the other. And eventually, decades later, they all beautifully merged into his own highly successful personal video game projects. That is the true M-shape in action. There is one final psychological trait you possess that makes you absolutely bulletproof in today's world, and it comes directly from evolutionary biology. It is called redundancy. In the natural world, redundancy is a massive strength, not a waste of energy. For example, elephants rarely get cancer because they possess massive genetic redundancy. They have multiple copies of the exact same cancer-fighting gene. If one fails, another instantly takes over. Your chaotic, constantly shifting interests are your biological redundancy. If you are just a highly specialized software engineer and artificial intelligence suddenly automates your specific job, you are completely terrified. Your survival is threatened. But if you are a software engineer who also knows how to do complex electrical wiring, fix broken HVAC motors, and teach English as a second language, you are unbreakable. You haven't been wasting your time just dabbling in random hobbies. You have been unconsciously engaging in brilliant strategic adaptability. You have been quietly building a massive safety net of diverse skills that ensures no matter what happens to the global economy, the advancement of technology, or the job market, you always have a pivot ready. So, it is time to stop apologizing for your beautiful graveyard of hobbies. Those abandoned projects were never failures. They were simply semesters in a university of your own making. You were never meant to be just one single thing. You were built to be the bridge between complex worlds that other people cannot even see. If you are finally ready to embrace your M-shaped future and stop feeling guilty for how your brain works, drop a heart emoji in the comments below to show you're putting it all together. And if you want the deep dive research on how to structure your life seasons without burning out, make sure to subscribe.